The outside world, I have no business being where I am. I'm 31 years old, and I run a company my grandfather built with his hands before I was born. People look at me and see youth. They see a woman in a good blazer and assume someone handed her a title. What they don't see is the 18-hour days. The supplier calls it midnight, the decade I spent learning every corner of this business before my name ever appeared on the door. I stopped caring what people assumed a long time ago. That composure, that ability to let things slide off me, is the thing that saved me last Tuesday. My grandfather founded Ashworth Tile and Stone 40 years ago out of a garage in Columbus. We supply premium materials to commercial builders, luxury hotels, high-end residential developers up and down the East Coast. When he passed 4 years ago, he left controlling interest to me, 63%, not to my uncle, not to the board, to me, because he said I was the only one who ever showed up. I quietly bought out 2 more board members last year. I don't advertise that. I keep my name off the company website, off the letterhead, off the email signatures. My grandfather taught me that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful one. My husband joined the company 3 years ago. I introduced him to the business carefully, the way you'd introduce a new element into a system you've spent years calibrating. He has charm and he has energy, and I genuinely believed in him. I made him VP of Business Development because he was good at relationships, good at the room, good at making clients feel like they were the only people that mattered. He traveled, he closed deals. I trusted him because he was my husband, and because I had never had a reason not to. I know now that I was paying for that trust with interest I didn't know I owed. His name is not worth saying at length. I'll call him what he is, my ex-husband. That part comes later. The new account coordinator joined us 8 weeks ago. She came with a polished resume and a personality calibrated for first impressions. Early 30s, sharp dresser, the kind of woman who makes sure to laugh at the right moments. She was hired under our sales director, nothing to do with me directly. I noticed her once in the hallway. She said good morning, I said good morning, and that was the full extent of our relationship as far as I was concerned. I should say here that our Columbus office is not small. We have a showroom on the ground floor, a big, glass-fronted space where we display tile samples, stone slabs, custom mosaics on lit panels. Clients come in to touch things, to visualize, to dream a little. It's beautiful. My grandfather would have loved it. Above the showroom is a mezzanine where the sales team works. And beyond that, a glass-walled conference room we use for major pitches. That Tuesday, I had driven in early for a 10 o'clock meeting with a developer out of Charlotte, Halverton Group. They were looking to outfit 3 boutique hotels, which meant 6 figures minimum if we closed it right. I was running the lead on this one personally. I'd spent 2 weeks on the proposal. I parked in the garage, took the elevator up, and walked into the mezzanine to print the final version of the presentation materials before heading to the conference room. She was already there. I don't know why she was at the printer. Nothing in her job required her to be using that particular printer at that particular moment. But there she was, and when she saw me, something shifted in her face. Not guilt exactly, more like a calculation running too fast to hide. I smiled and said good morning. She didn't smile back. You're early, she said, like it was a problem. I looked at her for a moment. I have a 10 o'clock. So does he. She said it the way you say something when you want the other person to understand they are the inconvenience in this equation. I didn't know what she meant yet. I assumed she was referring to a scheduling overlap, a shared conference room, something administrative. I said I'd be in room 1 if there was a conflict and turned to collect my documents from the tray. That's when she said it. You should probably just reschedule yours. He doesn't like distractions before a big meeting, and I would know. I'm his wife. I stopped. I turned around slowly and looked at her with the kind of stillness that happens when your body understands something your brain is still processing. I'm sorry, I said. Whose wife? She tilted her head like I was being deliberately slow. Your VP. My husband. We've been married for 7 months. She glanced down at her left hand in a way that seemed rehearsed, like she'd imagined saying this to someone. I know he doesn't talk about his personal life at work. He's private that way. There are moments in life where the floor doesn't drop out from under you. It just quietly tilts. Everything looks the same. The overhead lights are still on. The carpet is still gray. The printer is still humming. But the angle of the whole room has changed, and you are the only one who can tell. My husband and I had been married for 4 years. We shared a home in Bexley. We had a golden retriever named Fig. 3 weeks ago, I had made him dinner and we had argued pleasantly about whether to repaint the kitchen, and he had kissed me on the forehead before I fell asleep. 7 months, she said. I looked at this woman, this stranger who worked 40 feet from my office, and I felt something cold and clarifying move through me. Not hysteria, not tears, something older than that, something my grandfather would have recognized. I said very calmly, "What's your husband's name?" She said his name. My husband's name? Interesting, I said, and I picked up my documents and walked to the conference room. I did not go in. I stood in the hallway with my back against the wall for exactly 90 seconds. I know because I counted. I needed to count something real. Then I called him. He answered on the second ring, voice bright and easy, the way it always was when he knew a good day was ahead of him. "Hey, you're in early," he said. "I am," I said. "I need you to come to the office. I'll be there by 9:30, like we. Now," I said. "There's someone here you need to meet." A pause. Short, but real. "Everything okay?" "Come to the mezzanine," I said. "Use the main entrance." And I hung up. He arrived 18 minutes later. I was standing near the printer when he came off the elevator. She was still there. I had not asked her to leave. She was on her phone now, pretending to look at something, but she wasn't reading anything. Her eyes moved up when the elevator doors opened. I watched his face. I have never seen someone's expression disassemble in real time before. It happens faster than you'd expect. There's a sequence to it. Recognition, calculation, terror, all in under 2 seconds. And then the mask comes down, or tries to, but by then it's too late because I've already seen all three. He looked at me. He looked at me. He looked at her. He looked back at me. "Hey," he said. The word had nothing behind it. She found her voice first. She said his name like it was a question, like she was suddenly unsure she was standing in the right story. I said, "I understand you two know each other." Neither of them spoke. "She tells me she's your wife," I said, looking at him. "You should probably clarify that for her." The silence that followed was the loudest I've ever heard. He tried. He actually tried. He said there was a misunderstanding, that she had the wrong idea, that they had a complicated history and she'd become confused about the nature of their relationship. He said this standing in the mezzanine of my family's company while I held a 47-page client proposal in my hands, and the morning light came through the glass ceiling above us. She started crying. Not quiet crying. The kind that fills a room. She said she was pregnant. The floor tilted again. She was 9 weeks along, she said. He knew. He had known for 3 weeks. She had told him the same night I had made him dinner, the same night we had argued about the kitchen, the same night the same night he had kissed me on the forehead. He did not deny it. I stood there with my 47-page proposal, and I thought about my grandfather. I thought about the way he used to say, "The person who loses their composure first loses the negotiation." And I thought, this is the most important negotiation of my life. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. I was surprised by how steady my voice was. "You are going to go home, both of you, today." I looked at him. "You will hear from my attorney by end of week. You will not come back to this building. You will not come back to this building. You will not contact our clients. You will not access any company accounts, email, or files from this moment forward. Your badge has already been deactivated." He stared at me. "You can't." "I own 63% of this company," I said quietly. "I can." I had not deactivated his badge yet. I texted our head of IT from the hallway while they were both standing there, and by the time he tried his keycard at the main door on his way out, it didn't work. I know because I watched from the mezzanine window. The account coordinator, his other wife, left quietly. She stopped at the elevator and turned and looked at me with an expression I still think about sometimes. It wasn't defiance anymore. It was something more complicated. I felt, briefly, that we were both victims of the same person and that she was only just realizing it. I don't know if she knew about me in the beginning. I genuinely don't. But I know she knew by month 3 because I found an email later, during the discovery process, where she asked him directly and he told her I was an ex, that we'd been separated for over a year, that the paperwork just hadn't been finalized. He told her he was VP because he was talented, that he'd worked for the position, that I had nothing to do with his role there. He had never worked a day in his life that I hadn't opened the door for. The Halverton meeting went well. I ran it myself, the way I'd planned to from the start. I think I was sharper than usual. There's a kind of clarity that comes from the worst morning of your life when you decide you are not going to let it win. We closed the contract 3 weeks later. 6 figures, first phase. My grandfather's client relationship manager sent me a handwritten note. He said the old man would have been proud. What came out during the divorce is the part I wasn't prepared for, even though by then I thought I was prepared for anything. He had been skimming from the company. Not dramatically, not all at once. The kind of skimming designed to look like rounding errors, expense report irregularities, vendor overpayments to an account that resolved to a shell LLC he'd set up 18 months ago. Our forensic accountant found $212,000 over 26 months. The money had paid for an apartment lease in the short north, a car registered to her, a vacation she thought he'd planned as a surprise. She cooperated with our attorneys, which I respect. Whatever else she is, she cooperated fully. He tried, through his attorney, to claim a stake in the company on the basis of our marriage. His attorney cited my grandfather's estate documents and my personal holding structure and made a very confident argument. My attorney, who has been practicing business law in Ohio for 31 years and who does not raise her voice, disassembled that argument over the course of one 7-minute phone call. My grandfather had known, when he built the holding structure, that wealth attracts people who want to be adjacent to it. He had built the structure accordingly. There was nothing to claim. The divorce was final 4 months ago. The criminal charges, fraud, misappropriation, are still working through the system, and I have been told not to expect resolution before next year. I'm not in a hurry. The truth doesn't spoil. The part I think about most isn't the betrayal, actually, or the money. It's a specific conversation I had with my sales director, Emmett, about 2 weeks after everything happened. Emmett has been with the company for 19 years. He knew my grandfather. He sat across from me in my office and said he wanted to tell me something he should have said sooner. He had seen them together once, 6 months before that Tuesday. Not at the office, at a restaurant on the west side, a Tuesday evening, a booth in the back. He said he'd told himself it was nothing. He said he'd told himself it wasn't his business. He said he thought about it almost every day after and wished he had said something. I told him I didn't blame him. I meant it. I blame exactly one person. I kept the dog. Fig is asleep on the couch behind me right now, snoring the way he does when he's dreaming about something good. He got a new bed last month, a ridiculous memory foam thing my cousin talked me into, and he uses it never. He sleeps on the couch. I stopped fighting it. My cousin, by the way, is the reason I'm talking about this at all. She called me 2 weeks ago and said, "You need to tell this story. Not for revenge. You've already handled that. Tell it for the woman who's sitting in a parking lot somewhere right now, trying to decide if she's overreacting." She said, "Tell it because someone needs to know they're not crazy. Someone needs to know they're not crazy. Someone needs to know that losing your composure doesn't serve you. Someone needs to know that the structure you build around yourself is protection and you're allowed to use it." She's right. That's why I'm here. I was 31 years old, sitting in a mezzanine with a client proposal in my hands and a stranger claiming my husband was her husband, and I did not fall apart. Not because I didn't want to, not because it didn't hurt, but because my grandfather spent 40 years showing me what it looks like to take a hit and stay standing, and I was not going to waste that lesson on someone who had never deserved it. There's a man I've known for 6 years, a structural engineer named Beckett who I met on a project site back when I was still learning the business from the floor up. We started talking again last winter, slowly, the way adults do when they're both carrying things they've been careful with. He came to the office last month to consult on a new showroom expansion. He brought good coffee and didn't make it a thing. He just set a cup on my desk and went to look at the floor plans. I don't know yet what that is, but I know what it isn't, and that's enough for now. Fig is still snoring. The evening light is doing that thing it does in October, where it comes in gold and sideways through the window and makes everything look like it's worth something. My grandfather built this company in a garage. I run it now. And I've learned, more than I ever wanted to, that the most dangerous assumption you can make about a woman is that she doesn't know exactly what she owns.